As we gather together this morning, we reflect on the life of Sharon Samuels. Her death saddens us all, but the pain is felt most keenly by her husband, Steve, her children, Amy and Michael, and the late Robert, and we direct our sympathy and support to them first and foremost, but we also comfort each other. We extend our condolences to her brother-in-law, Jeffrey, her daughter-in-law, Lisa, and her grandchildren, Benjamin, Scott, Caleb, and Josephine, as well as to her extended family and friends. Sharon's loss is felt deeply within her family, her friends, and her community, including this community, and for those of us who aren't able to join us in person, but are able to join us via live stream this morning as well. We are left to remember her, to tell her story, and to hold on to the lessons that she taught in life. As we mourn, we make a transition now from living with Sharon's physical presence to the presence of her memory. We look to the words of our tradition to help us make that transition, beginning with the words of the Psalms. I have set the eternal always before me. God is at my side. I shall not be moved. Therefore does my heart exult and my soul rejoice. My being is secure. For you will not abandon me to death, nor let your faithful ones see destruction. You show me the path of life. Your presence brings fullness of joy. Enduring happiness is your gift. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light. Long, long after the star itself is gone. And so it is with people that we love. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the star that lights up the darkest nights, these are the lights that guide us as we live our days. These are the ways we remember as we live our days. These are the ways we remember. I'd like to invite up now Rabbi Bob to join me on the bima to lead us in Psalm 23.
Adonai ro'i lo echzar, b'not desha yar bitzeni, almei menuchot yanachaleni. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Esainai el harim, Esainai el harim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Me'ayin yavo Ezri, me'ayin yavo Ezri. Aseh shamayim va'aretz, Ezrimeim Adonai, Aseh shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. In this next reading, at the end of each phrase, the poet wrote, "We remember them." I'm going to invite you, if you would like to instead say, "We remember her," or "We remember Sharon." In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of the winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. So long as we live, Sharon too shall live, for she is a part of us as we remember her. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a going, a growing, from stage to stage, from childhood to maturity, and from youth to age, from innocence to awareness, and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again, from health to sickness, and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, and from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage, made stage by stage, from birth to death and life everlasting. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai natan v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given and God has taken away. Blessed be the name of God. At this point in time, we will hear from family, hear from friends, stories, memories, those things that we will hold in our hearts about Sharon. And so I invite up at this time to speak Sharon's children, Michael and Amy.
Can you hear me in the back? You sure? My mother always said I was a soft talker, and I mumbled, so I'll try not to do that, so I thought I'd have to ask. I'll try to be brief, leave time for my dad to take all morning, so let me. Good morning. Let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for your kindness and your support, your friendship, and love. Watching this disease unfold over the past year has been extremely difficult, and we sincerely appreciate all your phone calls, texts, visits, food, and really appreciate it. It means a lot. Each of us have their own personal experience and relationship with Sharon and the many versions of her that there are: the mother, the grandmother, the wife, the sister-in-law, the aunt, the mother-in-law, the teacher, the volunteer, the colleague, the friend. Each of these versions of Sharon touched us because she had a great empathy and her curiosity, which made all these personas very genuine. The woman we knew behind all these personas was strong, tough, and fiercely loyal to her family. She climbed the Himalayas in Nepal. She camped in a sandstorm in Morocco. She swam with the sharks in Moreo. She played with the lions in Botswana. She waited in lines for her family at Clementine's in South Haven. She was married to our father for 55 years. No matter what we did wrong growing up, and we can spend the rest of the morning talking about that, she always loved us. There were consequences, maybe more for Amy than myself. But she always loved us. She was our first teacher, and she taught us all through her life up until the end of what humility, dignity, poise, and bravery look like. She also taught us the value of a good get-together and having friends and family around, and we know she would be very happy seeing all of you, and we know that she's looking down and saying, "This is a good one." She was known as Yaya to her grandchildren, and she loved them dearly. Mom, we will miss you and love you. Thank you.
I'd like to invite up now Steve's younger brother, Jeffrey, to share some words with us.
I'm Jeffrey, Stephen's younger brother. I just have a few things to say about Sharon and my relationship with Sharon. I remember the first time I saw her, Stephen had proposed to her, and so my mother decided to have invited the Obermans, Sharon and her mother and father, Jack and Emily, to come to the house for a meet and greet dinner. That's the first time I saw Sharon. Her hair was up, beautiful blonde hair up in a bouffant. She looked absolutely gorgeous. Now, I grew up with Stephen, and my first reaction, my first impression and thought when I saw Sharon was pity. And as I watched the two of them live their lives together, I understood that my assessment was correct. So we had a dinner party. My mother wanted to put on a good show for the Obermans, and she had a little bell that she had, and she would ring the bell, and we had a housekeeper, Marie, who was tough as nails. And Marie came out and served the first course, then went back into the kitchen, And then Mother would ring the bell again, and Marie would come out and take away the dishes, and then serve the second course. And Stephen and I were looking at each other. We had never seen something like this. So we got up and we went into the kitchen, and there was Marie, and she was on fire. So we said to Marie, "What's going on here?" And Marie said, "If she rings that bell one more time, I'm going to shove it up her." So I had a wonderful relationship with Sharon. I found her to be honest and direct and sensible. For many years, I didn't see them, and Michael was about 8 or 9 years old, and I found out there was a fair in Elmhurst, and I wanted to take Michael to the fair. Now, I hadn't seen them in a few years, and I was in my full hippie regalia, hair down to the shoulders, beard, probably wore bib overalls that probably had paint on them. And I went to Steve and Sharon's home, and I pressed the bell, and Sharon answered the door. I said, "Sharon, oh, it's so great to see you. There's a fair in Elmhurst, and I want to take Michael to the fair. We'll go together." And Sharon looked at me up and down, said, "No way." So I said, "Sharon, come on. I'll be good. I'll take good care of him." And with her teeth gritted, "You'll watch him every minute?" I said, "I'll watch him You won't let your eyes off him?" "I won't let my eyes off him." So she let me take Michael. We had a wonderful time. Sharon and I would talk about our traveling exploits, and she told me this story. I introduced Steve and Sharon to Acapulco, and I praised at that time Acapulco. This was probably in the 70s, and so Steve and Sharon decided they were going to take a trip to Acapulco on a tour. So they were going to go to Mexico and Tasco and Cuernavaca and then Acapulco. And they took the tour, and they went to Mexico, and they went to Tasco, and they went to Cuernavaca. Then they had to get to Acapulco. Now, at that time, there was a bus ride from Mexico City to Acapulco. There were no superhighways, and it took hours for them to get there. They probably got to the hotel at 6 or 7 o'clock at night. They were hungry, they were hot, it was a difficult trip. So they get there, and they present themselves to the manager, and he says, "I'm sorry, we don't have a room for you." And they look at each other. I said, "Sharon, what did you do?" She said, "Oh, I was perfectly calm. I picked up my suitcase, I put it on the counter, I opened it up, and methodically I started taking my things out of the suitcase." And I said, "What happened?" And the manager said to me, "What are you doing?" And Sharon said, "If you don't have a room for me, I'm sleeping in the lobby." And of course they found a room for Sharon and Stephen. Sharon and I had a good relationship. In the last years, I would come and visit them, and when I saw the two of them and I saw Sharon, she would light up, and we would talk and laugh and tell stories to each other. I really loved Sharon, and I really loved my brother, Stephen. Take care, and God bless you.
It's my pleasure to invite up Diane Rubick, a good friend of Sharon and Steve's, to share some of her recollections now.
I did this for our friend Connie, and I'm going to do it for Sharon. I always told Sharon she was my soul sister. She had the same birthday as my biological sister, so I felt it was beshert that we were kindred spirits. I have known Sharon for 30-plus years. We knew of each other when I joined the temple, but we became fast friends at a very sad time. Our friend Landra's husband was very ill, and Landra asked Sharon to organize their son Matt's bar mitzvah at the temple. Sharon called me because I was on the Sisterhood Catering Committee, which I think Sharon started. I called Connie Mechanic, who was the temple office manager. We became a team. Now I'm the last member of the team. We became fast friends, and Sharon influenced so many things in my life. Sharon said, let's join Women's Workout World, so I did. She said, let's join the book discussion at the library, so we did. We did step aerobics, Elmhurst Garden Club, all because of Sharon's suggestions. She even taught me how to make strudel once. We both like music. She and Steve like jazz. I like the Beatles. We both like to dance. She and Steve country line danced. I tap danced. We love theater, movies, the CSO, the lyric opera. She met Steve when she was in high school, and I met my husband Don when I was in high school. We always said those two guys were our one and onlys. She looked like Sandra Dee, as you can see. So that makes Steve Bobby Darin. She was my travel guru. I was not as adventurous as her and Steve. I heard the Morocco sandstorm in the 10th story. I couldn't take it. But I love to hear the stories, and I love to see Steve's beautiful pictures. When I was unhappy with my job at the Ronald McDonald House, Sharon said, well, why don't you call the temple and see if they have an opening? Maybe you can come back. I'd worked there for many years. 2 weeks later, I got the call. There was an opening. She was such a huge part of my life, and I will miss her always. One of the last times I saw her awake, she said, thank you for being my friend. I say that back to you, Sharon. Thank you for being my friend. And I'll always think of her every time I see beautiful purple flowers. Thank you.
I'd like to invite up Susan Nussbaum, a friend of the family who's known them for 55 years, as long as they were married.
Charles Dickens once wrote, "It was the best of times, and it was the worst of times." That's true of the times of all of our lives, and especially true of the 55 years that I was friends with Sharon Samuels. Obviously, right now, it's one of the worst of times, but I'm not here to focus on that. I'm going to tell you about some of the best of times. I met Sharon when we moved into the apartment at 4920 Marine Drive. They lived in the penthouse on the 5th floor. We lived on the 2nd floor. That did make sense to me when I found out that the owner of the building was Arthur Samuels, Stephen's father. Stephen insisted that even though his father was the landlord, that they still had to pay for the washer and dryer. Well, I highly doubt that to this day, okay? We spent many fun hours together, including driving around our neighborhood uptown where we sang out, "I dreamed I was there in hillbilly heaven," right? And we were. Once when I was recuperating, Sharon brought dinner for me, pork chops. For Jewish people, bacon, ribs, and shrimp are fine, but not pork chops. It was the first time I ever ate them, and the last. When Michael was born, I used to babysit sometimes, and then Sharon did the same when I had Melissa. But as our families grew, we knew it was time to leave the small apartments. We moved out of the building on the very same day, in September of 1969. I remember it was very challenging sharing the elevator on moving day. We went our separate ways, they to Elmhurst, we to Des Plaines, and then a few years later, I moved to Glenwood, which was in the far south suburbs, but we have always remained good friends. Sharon and Stephen loved to travel always, as you've heard, and I do too. In all of these years, we had never taken a trip together. So we decided to go on an Alaskan cruise 3 years ago. And we had a wonderful, wonderful time. Sharon enjoyed every minute, and I will always cherish those memories. Sharon was one of the kindest and most sincere people I've ever known. She always brought great gifts whenever they came to my parties. She was fun and she was thoughtful. It's a great comfort to me to have those wonderful memories. As the years go on, I will always focus on the best of times. Sharon, I will miss you every day.
It's my pleasure to invite up Steve, Sharon's beloved husband of 55 years, to share with us now some of his memories and recollections.
You know, I know what you're thinking. I'm an instructor, and we'll be here for another hour. That's not true. I've heard some things that I just didn't remember, especially about the apartment, which I did pay the rent, although some people don't believe that. I only have great things to say about the love of my life. You may ask how she was able to put up with me for 55 years of marriage. Well, we all got divorce stuff out of the way before. Since we met on December 5th, 1959, we broke up at least 3 times. All my fault, of course. And then we got married on my birthday, December 19th, 1965. The only thing that really bothered my love was that my folks always remembered my birthday, but not my anniversary. I didn't know she made strudel. I don't know if I ever had any of that stuff. She was kind of a jokester. I remember when she was pregnant with Michael, 9 months pregnant, we were at DeMar's Grill on Broadway. It was kind of a sleazy joint. There were a lot of sleazy joints there. And there was just one man who was the cook and the manager and the cashier. And he had a tattoo on his arm the size of my face. And of course, Sharon and I are sitting there for having dinner, and all of a sudden she says, real loud, and there's other people there, "When are you going to marry me?" I said, where did you come up with that? He said, I just thought it was funny. And she would, you know, like Susan said, we would go up and down the streets, and she would stick her head out, and sing, hillbilly tunes and everything. And she got her up. And one day she was walking down with Michael. Michael's about 6 months old. And a guy said, "Hey, Blondie." Like this. And Sharon took a look. Wow, I can't believe that. She says, took another look. So she said, as soon as she saw that, she says, "We're moving out of here." I said, "Well, you got it coming because, you were making jokes about everybody that lives around here." She was a marvelous mother to my children. She took care of them and nurtured them while I was working 80 hours a week. She was also kind and generous to our grandchildren, and she was also a very good cook, gardener, and album maker. For myself, since I'm not easy to live with, and being a very light sleeper, she would kindly roll to one side and stop snoring so as not to disturb my sleep. That in itself was worth 55 years of being together. As you all know, Sharon was an avid traveler, took me on some rather wild expeditions. Of course, that came with buying inexpensive clothes and babbles everywhere we went. Her travel suitcase would weigh 25 pounds going and 45 pounds coming back. Similarly, when we went to Acapulco for 20 years in January, same thing. I mean, how many bathing suits does one need to swim in a pool or an ocean. She would literally stand on the hot sand on the beach and wait for vendors to gather around and sell her stuff. She would even go to the huts where the vendors got their stuff to buy more stuff. And as you know, she was also quite a splunker. One of our first dates, accompanied by her father, Jack Oberman, who didn't trust me at the time, was to Merrimack Caverns in Missouri. On our trips, we went to caves in over 1/3 of the countries we visited. She loved animals, especially bats. I thought I might be married to Bela Lugosi's niece. Actually, she had a python once around her neck, carried a large iguana on a beach, and even petted a large lion. I have a picture of that one. On our porch, she could smash large bugs with her palm. However, if a mouse the size of a pin ran across the porch, she would scream bloody murder. Sharon is in a better place. She did not suffer. She had an excellent caregiver. I was very lucky in that respect. I've been missing my wife for over a year now. All the excitement of our marriage was gone once this terrible disease took hold of her. The 90-year-old elm, one of the largest trees in Elmhurst, must have known she was dying because it has the elm disease and it'll be cut down next month. Sharon has many friends, never had a mean word to say about any person. She was very generous and charitable through her volunteer work, and guess I will miss her terribly. Finally, as I see out there, she has many friends from our congregation and those from the other side of the aisle, as she was taken in over the years by the IC group. I'm totally in awe about how many people there are here today. I'm happy to see my golf and handball buddies who put up with me almost as much as Sharon. I have to quickly thank the following folks who constantly brought food over to me during and after COVID. Harlan London, who claims he's the best cook in the western suburbs. I probably attest to that. Paulette and Ron Reiniger. I hope I'm not missing anybody. Carol and Jerry Woolen. Elaine and Robert Davidson. Thanks, Bob, for coming over to visit from time to time and helping me put exercise equipment together for Sharon, and, of course, showing me how to save money. The Friedmans, Linda and Harvey Siegel, the Jacobsons, the Haysons, Paul Heiss, and the Caring Committee, Robin Dombeck, Fran and Tony Brown, and Susan Nussbaum, Maxine Kuntz, and a special thanks to Renee Ray, Merle Ehrlich, Paula Weiniger, and the Shiva Committee. Thank you for being here. It means a lot to me and my family. Sharon would be quite proud of you all. And finally, be grateful every second of every day that you get to spend with the people you love. Life's very precious. Thank you.
When we think of the consummate lady, adventurous spelunker is not usually the first set of words that comes to mind. And yet that is what we know who Sharon was. She was always put together and dressed to the nines, whether to drive Michael and Amy somewhere for one of their many extracurricular activities or to host a dinner party. And at the same time, Sharon was the consummate traveler, always seeking traveling opportunities as we heard off the beaten path, and she pushed Steve to be more adventurous, whether that meant walking with lions in Africa or staying with host families instead of nicer hotels. And while everyone remembers Sharon's impressive ability to dress in any number of different fashion styles, it was the action behind those clothes that made Sharon such an impressive wife, mother, grandmother, and friend. Sharon always made sure that Michael, Robert, and Amy knew how much they were loved and cared for, making sure that there was both silliness and order at home. Especially in the years following Robert's death, Sharon ensured that there was a sense of balance in the Samuel home, and often said more through her actions than through her words. Sharon pushed Michael to get a job after college, motivating him by deciding to get her own job. And she enabled Amy to keep working after her granddaughter was born by spending close to a year helping to take Josie to appointments and watching Scott. She showed up to all her grandkids' events and ensured that her daughter-in-law, Lisa, always felt like she was a part of the family, so much so that she eventually relinquished her holiday hosting to Lisa. And we all know how big of a deal that was for her, all while continuing to check in and ensure that the turkey was cooked and the table was properly set. Additionally, though, Sharon's actions reached the broader community through her giving of time at DuPage Pads, Elmhurst Ministry, and the Compassionate Friends organization. There's words that we read often on a Friday night on Shabbat, but I think are fitting for someone like Sharon. This prayer, we talk about a woman of valor, and certainly Sharon was that woman of valor. Eshet chayil mi yimsa, v'rachop mipnim michra. A woman of valor who can find? She is more precious than fine pearls. Her husband trusts in her, and he lacks nothing. She does him good, never harm all the days of her life. She perceives that her labor is rewarding. Her candle burns into the night. She reaches out to those in need and extends her hand to the poor. She is clothed in strength and dignity, and she faces the future cheerfully. She speaks with wisdom. The law of kindness is on her lips. Her children rise up and bless her. Her husband sings her praises. Many daughters have done valiantly, but you excel them all. While Sharon's physical presence is no longer here with us, we have these lasting memories of Sharon, and we will continue to use our actions to embody who Sharon was as the protective, adventurous fashionista that she was. We will miss her, but we remember what our tradition teaches, that Zichrona Livracha, may her memory always be for a blessing. And so we take a few moments now for silent reflection. Ose shalom bimromav, huyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yase shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ask everybody to please rise as we recite El Maleh Rachamim. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Chamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Haraki Hamazhirim, Et Nishmat Sharon Bat Yitzchak, Shehalcha Leolama, Baal Harachamim Yastireha, Beseter Knafav Leolamim, Bitzror Bitzrar HaChayim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hunachalatam, V'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar Amen. Together we join in English the words you can find on your pamphlet. God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence, among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Sharon Samuels, who is gone unto eternity. Lord of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be thou her possession, and may her response be peace. Amen. Please be seated.
I haven't been here in a while. Family will be observing the Shiva and receiving condolence calls at their home in Elmhurst this evening from 6 to 8 p.m. At 7 o'clock will be the Shiva, the Minyan service. So from 6 to 8 this evening, they'll be receiving condolence calls. The interment is going to take place at Rose Hill Cemetery in Chicago. It is quite a distance, and there's no good way to get there from here. Therefore, we will not be going in procession. Just the family and the hearse will be going in procession. Those of you who would like to join us at the cemetery, there's a map and directions in the folder. There's one correction. The instructions say to take I-80 east. That should have been I-88, right down the street. We will be meeting at the main entrance at Rose Hill off of Ravenswood Avenue at 12 o'clock. And we will proceed to graveside in procession at 12:15. So we have plenty of time for you to get there if you choose to. Do not rush, be safe. This time I'm going to ask the following people who have been asked to be pallbearers to please go to the middle aisle to meet the casket. Scott Samuels, Ben Samuels, Lisa Samuels, Jeffrey Samuels, Josephine Biancofiore, Chris Carr, and Anna Purietta into the center aisle. The rest of the congregation will please rise in silent prayer as we escort the casket from the sanctuary.